What if the person you've spent your entire life becoming isn't you? What if the thoughts in your head, the values you hold dear, the path you've chosen, were never truly yours to begin with? You may think you're free, that you've made your own decisions, but beneath the layers of choice and habit lies a silent puppeteer, a culture, a morality, a history that shaped your identity long before you had the power to question it. Friedrich Nietzsche called it the herd. The mass of humanity shackled by inherited beliefs, walking paths they did not choose, and praising virtues they never questioned. And most damning of all, they mistake obedience for virtue. Have you ever felt a quiet dissatisfaction, even when doing everything right? That ache may not be failure. It might be the voice of your buried self, crying out from beneath the weight of expectations. This isn't about rebellion for its own sake. This is about revelation, and Nietzsche's terrifying invitation: become who you are. To do that, you must first realize you are not who you think you are. Where did these chains come from? How did we learn to fear our own power? To Nietzsche, the answer lies in a historical betrayal, a shift from strength to shame. In ancient times, power, courage, and vitality were celebrated. The warrior, the artist, the thinker, they were expressions of life's force. But over time, a new morality emerged, one that deified weakness and made a virtue of suffering, one that taught us to deny our instincts, suppress our desires, and label our passions as sins. This is not mere theory. This is a transformation that reshaped the soul of the West. Nietzsche called it slave morality, a moral code born from resentment. The weak, unable to overpower the strong, condemned power itself. They turned humility into holiness. They made guilt a form of control. In this reversal, the self became suspect. And over centuries, we internalized that suspicion. We became moral and miserable. This isn't just a history lesson. It's the story of how the fire in your chest was replaced by a whisper of doubt. So, how do we know we've been suppressed? It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. It looks like a job you chose for security, not passion. A relationship you maintain out of duty, not love. A silence you keep out of fear, not wisdom. Suppression wears many masks: responsibility, politeness, humility. But underneath them is often something else: fear. Fear of rejection, fear of chaos, fear of standing alone. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we bury because we're told they are unacceptable. But what if the shadow contains your genius, your fire, your real voice? Nietzsche wasn't advocating for recklessness. He was calling us to reclaim what we've buried. Think of the artist who abandoned their canvas for a paycheck, the child who was told to be quiet and never spoke again, the soul who feared being too much and became nothing. What mask do you wear? And what would happen if it cracked? If the self has been buried, can it be uncovered? Nietzsche's answer was radical, not just to reject the herd, but to transcend it, to become something new, something higher, the Übermensch, not a tyrant, not a god, but a human being who reclaims the power to shape meaning. The herd craves safety, predictability, comfort. The Übermensch chooses risk, creation, and truth. Where the herd asks, "What will people think?" the Übermensch asks, "What do I truly want to become?" This journey isn't safe. It may cost you friendships, certainty, and even sanity. But in return, it gives you life, real life. We look to myth for guidance. Prometheus stole fire from the gods. Dionysus embraced chaos to find ecstasy. Shiva destroyed illusion to create anew. These are not just stories, they are blueprints for awakening. To walk this path is to remember, you are not here to conform. You are here to become. But here's the twist. Liberation doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like loss, like being torn apart. Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence asks, would you choose to live this exact life again and again and again? If your answer is no, something must change. But change begins with destruction, the collapse of the false self, the letting go of everything you thought made you you. This is the dark night of the soul, the moment when the old self dies. And there's nothing yet to replace it. Can you sit in that silence? Can you bear the emptiness? Because in that silence something stirs, a whisper, a fire, a becoming. In the end, this is not about Nietzsche. It's not about philosophy. It's about you who were born with fire in your belly, you who learned to dim your light, you who were taught to be good instead of real. And now you hear the call. Faint but clear. Become who you are. You don't need to find something new. You need to remember. Beneath the masks, the roles, the silence, something ancient waits, something sacred, something utterly you. The mystics knew it. The Sufis sang it. The yogis meditated on it. The kingdom is within, so ask yourself, not with fear but with reverence, who am I when no one's watching? And if I listen to that voice within the silence, what might I become? Whose dreams are you chasing? Look around. Your job, your clothes, your opinions, are they yours, or were they given to you? You wake up each day, perform your rituals, fulfill your roles. But deep beneath the surface something stirs, a tension, a silence, a self you've buried so well even you can't hear it anymore. Friedrich Nietzsche called this the herd instinct, the unconscious obedience to societal norms, the quiet surrender of power in exchange for comfort. We are taught from birth what is good, what is right, what is normal. But who decided those rules, and what was lost in our obedience? To them, the tragic irony is this. Most people live as though they are free, yet they are playing roles written by others. You are not who you truly are. You are who you had to become to survive in a world that feared your truth, and so the journey begins, not outward, but inward, into the abyss, into the mirror, not to find answers, but to confront the most terrifying question of all. What if I've never really lived as myself at all? Imagine morality not as a compass, but as a cage. Nietzsche traced our values back to their origins, not in truth, but in power, in fear, in resentment. Once, power defined virtue. Nobility was strength, creativity, affirmation of life. But something changed. The weak, unable to dominate, created a new morality, one that praised meekness, guilt, humility. They labeled the powerful as evil, and called their own submission good. Thus was born what Nietzsche called slave morality, a system not of truth but of survival, a quiet revenge of the powerless. It crept into our religions, our laws, our schools. It told us to suppress our desires, our instincts, our uniqueness, for the sake of the group. And so, generation after generation, we inherited this morality like a virus disguised as virtue. We learned to obey. We learned to hide. We learned to lie to ourselves. And beneath it all, the true self, wild, radiant, untamed, was buried beneath centuries of shoulds and musts. What you call being a good person may, in truth, be the slow death of your authenticity. The cage isn't locked, but we've been taught to fear what lies beyond its bars. Imagine this. There is no script, no destiny, no cosmic purpose guiding your steps. Terrifying, isn't it? That's freedom. Nietzsche didn't call for rebellion. He called for responsibility. He asked us to become authors of our own values, not to react, but to create, to stare into the abyss of meaninglessness and give it form. This is the path of the Übermensch, not a superior human, but a self-created one, the one who no longer needs approval, applause, or permission. But there's a cost to become who you truly are. You must let the old self die, the roles, the stories, the comfort of certainty. All of it must burn, and in the silence that follows, a new voice begins to speak. It doesn't beg to be liked. It doesn't fear being misunderstood. It simply is. This is not the voice of ego. This is the voice of becoming. The greatest lies are not the ones we tell others, they are the ones we whisper to ourselves and call them truth. We say, "This is who I am." But what we really mean is, "This is who I learned to be." Your personality is a mask, your beliefs a script, your ego a fortress built to protect a fragile flame. Nietzsche warned of the last man, the one who seeks only comfort, safety, sameness, the one who has silenced their instincts so completely they no longer feel the call of greatness. Is that who you've become? Have you traded your soul for stability, your passion for peace? We are not merely suppressed by society, we participate in the suppression. We choose it because truth is dangerous, it destroys illusions, it demands transformation. But without truth, we are just well-dressed ghosts, deep in your bones. Something ancient still burns. It is wild, it is irrational, it is divine. Nietzsche called it the Dionysian force, chaotic, sensual, instinctual. It is the part of you that dances without knowing the steps, the part that weeps at beauty, that howls at injustice, that dreams not in words but in fire. Society fears this part of you, so it teaches you to suppress it, to sedate it, to call it immature, dangerous, insane. But without it, you are only half alive. The Dionysian is not chaos, it is creativity, not destruction, but transformation. The instinct is not your enemy, it is your oracle, have become what you were always meant to be. Your inner voice is not soft and polite, it is fierce, it is the storm. And when you finally stop resisting, when you let it rise, you will not recognize yourself, because you will have become what you were always meant to be. There comes a moment when every should falls silent, every borrowed truth, every sacred rule, every inherited belief crumbles, and in the wreckage something rare emerges: choice. Nietzsche called us to go beyond good and evil, not into moral chaos, but into moral authorship, to stand alone, naked, without a script, and say, "This is who I am. This is what I value. This is what I will become." Most turn back at this threshold, because freedom is terrifying, but if you walk forward, if you accept that there are no rules, only responsibility, then you become the artist of your soul, and life itself becomes your canvas. You are the sculptor, the chisel, the marble, the masterpiece. Voice warm, transcendent, quiet with awe. In the end, there is no true self to be found, only the self you choose to become, not hidden beneath layers, but created. Through courage, your suppression was never the absence of truth. It was the refusal to create it. And now you know you are not a prisoner, you are the dreamer, the architect, the spark. So ask yourself with trembling honesty, if you had to live this exact life again, forever, would you rejoice or despair? The answer is the shape of your soul, and the truth you've been running from. You were never lost, you were asleep. Now wake up. What if the person you've spent your whole life being isn't really you? You wake up, brush your teeth, go to work. You laugh at the right jokes, follow the rules, nod politely. You wear the name they gave you. You speak in the voice they taught you. You walk paths carved by hands not your own. And yet, behind all of it, something stirs. A whisper, a restlessness. What if this life is a mask? What if you are an actor in a play, reciting lines handed to you by family, school, media, and society? You were told who to be before you ever had a chance to become. And now you live as that echo, mistaking imitation for identity. But somewhere, hidden beneath the years of performance, routine, and expectation, your real self waits, not polished, not approved, but alive. This is not a crisis. It is a beginning, because the question is not whether you're suppressing your true self. The key question is why. And to answer it, we must turn to a man who dared to shout through the silence of modern life, who declared God dead, who tore apart morality, and who demanded one thing above all else: Become who you are. His name was Nietzsche. Friedrich. Nietzsche was not a philosopher of peace. He was a storm, a prophet with wild eyes who looked into the heart of Western civilization and saw rot. In the ashes of the Enlightenment, where reason replaced faith, he found not liberation but emptiness. With the death of God, he warned, the world would drift into nihilism. Morality, stripped of its divine scaffolding, would collapse into a shapeless fog. And in that fog, humanity would cling to whatever gave the illusion of meaning, and so Nietzsche watched as the world built a morality not from strength or creativity, but from fear. He called it slave morality, a value system birthed by the weak, the resentful, the conforming. It rewarded obedience, it punished passion, it taught people not to rise but to shrink. And the terrifying thing? It wore the mask of virtue. Goodness became submission, evil became rebellion, and society was redesigned to protect the mediocre. From the exceptional, Nietzsche saw a world drifting toward the last man, a creature of comfort, routine, and safety. No ambition, no risk, no fire, just a quiet, manageable existence, the kind that never questions the script it's been handed, and that, Nietzsche believed, was the ultimate tragedy, not suffering, not failure, but a life lived in denial of one's own potential. Before you ever made a choice, choices were made for you. You were born into a world with invisible rules, spoken and unspoken, cultural codes so deeply embedded they don't feel like constraints, they feel like reality. You were taught to be good, to be polite, to fit in, to succeed, but not too much, to desire, but never too loudly, to think, but only within the lines. And over time, a self was constructed, a version of you designed not to express your inner truth, but to avoid rejection. Psychologists call it the false self. A social mask, a defense mechanism, a persona that says, please like me, please accept me, please don't leave me alone, and society rewards it. Promotions, praise, attention, all come to those who play the part well, but the cost is silence. The true self, raw, emotional, instinctual, is buried. Carl Jung warned that the more we identify with the mask, the more we forget what lies beneath it. And Nietzsche, he saw this as a sickness of the soul. He didn't want people to become moral. He wanted them to become whole, not good citizens, but dangerous individuals, creators, warriors, poets of existence. So now we ask, if you stripped away everything you were taught to be, what remains? Can you even recognize your own reflection without the mask? There is a part of you that does not want to be tamed. It howls beneath your logic. It dreams in images, not words. It speaks through art, lust, rage, ecstasy. It is not evil soul, but it is wild. And you have been taught to fear it. Nietzsche called this force the Dionysian, named after the Greek god Dionysus, the god of wine, madness, theater, and divine chaos. This energy is the opposite of control. It is the sacred pulse of life itself. To Nietzsche, Western civilization was obsessed with the Apollonian, order, reason, clarity, restraint. But without the Dionysian, life becomes sterile, predictable, hollow. The Dionysian is the dance of the soul before it was taught to stand still. In ancient rites, people wore masks, entered trances, and surrendered to the divine madness. It was not a loss of control. It was a reunion with a deeper truth. You don't have to go mad to find it, but you do have to stop pretending that you are only what can be measured, approved, or explained. To reclaim the wild within is to remember. You are not a machine. You are a storm wearing a suit, a fire buried beneath politeness, a god disguised as a name on a resume. And Nietzsche's question echoes again. Why do you fear the parts of you that are most alive? Become who you are. At first glance, it makes no sense, How can you become something you already are? But Nietzsche wasn't offering a slogan. He was offering a riddle, a path, a sword. The true self isn't something you're born with, fully formed. It's something you uncover, through pain, through rebellion, through creation. It is forged in contradiction, in the moments you say no to what doesn't feel right, in the moments you say yes to what terrifies you. It is not about finding yourself. It's about building yourself, carving the soul out of the stone of conformity. The Übermensch or Overman is not a superior being in the Darwinian sense. It is a human who transcends the values of the herd and creates values of their own. It is the artist of life, the spiritual outlaw, the one who dares to live without a script. Most people are fragments, divided between what they want and what they're told to want. But the one who becomes who they are unites those fragments into something singular, something real. It is not a comfortable path, it is not safe, but it is alive. And if you're listening to this now, perhaps something inside you is stirring. A voice long buried, saying, there is more to you than this. There is a mirror most people avoid. It doesn't show your smile. It doesn't show your success. It shows everything you've exiled, your anger, your shame, your lust, your fear, your craving for power. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the unconscious part of ourselves that we deny, but Nietzsche, he simply embraced it. He knew that suppressing the dark does not make you good, it makes you divided. And the divided self is easy to control, easy to break, easy to forget. To be whole, you must face the shadow, not to be consumed by it, but to integrate it. The warrior learns to hold the blade, not deny it. The lover must embrace desire, not sanity.